Aloha mai kako. Thank you so much for joining us today on a very special presentation on Nali'i Kapu-Hawai'i. Our presenter today will be Ku'aloha Kaulia um, from Maui. And to start off our introductions and our day today, introducing our presentation will be our festival executive director, Kumuhula Kumumaka Herod.
Aloha kakahiaka kako. I'm Kumaka or Kalamai. And I am so honored and happy to be in the presence of your home or wherever you're at. May you be safe and also wear your mask. And it's important because we want all of us to be mai ka'iloa. Anyway, it's a beautiful Saturday actually here in Anohola, Kauai. It's a little bit overcast, but it's nice. It's Malie, just like our name, Malie Foundation. Malie Foundation. And we want to welcome you today to our 2020 workshop series on Na'ali'i Hawaii, which is our theme. So every year, our board of directors would come together and we would select themes for each year. So this year we focus on Na'ali'i Hawaii or royalties of Hawaii. At this time, I would like to ask you, should you have any questions throughout the presentation, that you would write it down, or you can either type it in the comment field. And we have some of our directors in the back will be either answering it for you. You may want to write it down or keep it just in case our presenter will answer that later on in the presentation. The other thing is that we're going to be singing a song that's connected to the presentation, and that's Kaulana Napua. So for those of you that have the words, you can pull it up, or we're going to have it on the screen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenter. But before we do that, our presenter, we're going to say mahalo nui to Keakua for a beautiful day. We're going to start we always do this when we do an event, that we start off with pule. So e pule kako. Thank you, Keakua, for this day, and thank you for allowing us to come together in one mind, one thought, to learn of our culture and just be engaged in the legacies of our kupuna. Thank you for our presenter. May he be a blessing to all of us that are watching and experiencing and witnessing this wonderful workshop. Thank you, Keakua, for your love and aloha that you give us. In your precious name, amen. Honani kamakua ma. Ke me kauhane no. Ke akua mau ho'o mai ka ipu. Ko ke iau, ko ke lau. Amen. I also wanted to say mahalo Keakua for our festival, our founder of the Malie Foundation and Kauai Mokiana Festivals, Uncle Nathan Kalama, who's watching. So aloha, Uncle. Love you very much. So without further ado, I'd like to take this time to introduce to you our presenter of Na'ali'i Kapu-Hawai'i. His name is Ku'aloha Kaulia Kumuhula Kumu Olelo, a composer, musician, genealogist, ho'oponopono, and more. He will be sharing his thoughts on Na'ali'i Kapu-Hawai'i, which is the paramount chiefs of Hawaii. He has extensive background in Hawaiian culture and history. Ku'u, as he is affectionately known as today, shares his philosophy on of how important for all people to know the components of the Hawaiian culture. Many lessons we learn in hula or in class setting are not only applicable in that area, but in life as well. Ku'u enjoys composing Hawaiian chants and songs that commemorate or celebrate specific occasions. So please help me welcome Ku'aloha Nui Kaulia from the island of Maui. Aloha!
Kanalu nui a ku kanalu mai kona ka malo a ka mahie. Ka o na ululo a lele ka umalo ka ka I malo hoaka. O ka malo kai malo o ke li'i. E kua humea pai ka malo. Ka I ka la I ka papa o hale po a pai o hale po I kanalu ho e kanalu mai ka hiki. He nalu a kea nalu ho o hua. Haki o pu'u kanalu haki kua pā. E a mai ka maka kai he e nalu. Kai he e nalu I ke awa kea. Ku ka puna ke ko'a iuka. Ka maka hao ka nalu o kui hewa. Wa o ia no ha ka papa. No ha maui na wewe. Na wewe na kele kele. Na kele ka ili o kai he e kai. Lali lali ole ka ili o ke a ka mai. Ka hili hili ke kai a ka he nalu, I kea ka nalu nui o puna o hilo. Aloha kākou. Aloha. Aloha kākou.
Aloha kumu. So here's a lei for you. Mahalo nui for joining.
Oh.
I love it. Mahalo nui, honestly, for doing this for me. And you know, it's always our tradition to give our presenters a lei. And so I contacted his niece last night, and I asked her if she could get a lei for him and present it at the same time that we would be makoko. And it worked. Mahalo kia koa.
Hi. Mahalo nui. Mahalo.
I love it. So you know what? Yes, so please share with everyone your mana'o on na. I know that you've been working really hard in whatever you're going to present today.
Okay. Hiki no. O ka mea mua make wau mahalo kia kua. I kona haawi ana mai ka'u ike na mea iloa a ia'u. Mahalo I ko'u ohana, ko'u mau kupuna, I hele mua mai ma mua o'u, ma ke I honua nei. Mahalo ia kākou ka lahu I kanaka. I loko ke ia mau wāhihia no hoi. E awamo like kākou ke ia anohana me ka pō mai ka I mai o ke akua. No leila, my name is Ku'aloha Nui Kaulia. I come from actually Nanakuli, Ewa, and the Wai'anae Moku on Oahu. Born in Ewa, raised in Wai'anae. My ohana, my paternal side, my father's ohana come from Ka'u. I just wanted to quickly make a link with the oli that I did. The oli kepa kepa that I did was taught to me by one of my kumu, Kalani Akana, and it was for Naihe. And way back in, I believe it was 1991, I learned it from him because he felt the connection was important that I know that. And I know for some halau, they use that oli as, I want to say a dressing chant. But for me, it's a tie to my ha'ikupuna or genealogy. And so my father's family comes from the Ka'u Kona region on Hawaii Island. My mother's ohana comes from here on Maui. Her ohana are from the Ulaino area in Hana, close to Hana. It's right next to Hana, but it's all part of Hana. They're all one ohana in Hana. And as well as the Iao region, which is right up the valley from where I currently live. I'm in Wai'ehu right now. So a little bit also about my background. You know, I started teaching in the Hawaiian immersion program, Ke Kula Kaya Puni o Waiau, which put me on Keakua's journey to do much of the work that I do today. So I taught in various Hawaiian immersion programs. And later I came to Maui because of a job opportunity, and continue to remain here because I have a mo'opuna that I care for. I would like to also acknowledge all of my kumu, all of our kumu, our kupuna that came before us. I was fortunate to have learned from a number of kumuhula who were not just experts in the hula, but for many of the other cultural components. As you can see, what my philosophy is that Kumumaka read earlier in my introduction. So mahalo nui to all of our kumu, our kupuna, our lo'ea that came before us. I wanted to start first that when we look at the title page, we have Nali'i Kapu-Hawai'i. And yeah, mahalo to the Malia Foundation Kauai Mokihana Festival, which I've been involved in, as a competitor with my halau back in the late 90s. I really aloha them. The Malia Foundation, Kauai Mokihana Festivals, and all that they stand for, I really, really aloha them. They have what it takes to put on what needs to be relayed to our Hawaiian communities on Kauai and elsewhere. So mahalo ya oko, Uncle Nathan, Maka, and the whole team, Puka, Waipu'i Lanima. I wanted to start off, before I go further into the next slides, that there is an olelo no'eau that hula practitioners, kumu hula, haumana hula, they understand this olelo no'eau, because to know everything is impossible. And so I share with you this olelo no'eau a ole pau ka'ike I ka halau ho'okahi. Well, that doesn't just pertain to hula, that pertains to every single person, every single kanaka. It would be impossible to know everything about our culture. And so what I share with you today is a lot of my ike that I have learned over the years. I'd like to thank Auntie Edith Kavelohea Mackenzie. In 1994, she was my teacher at the University of Hawaii, and she taught Hawaiian genealogies. And she has books that she wrote, and she's no longer with us here today, but a wonderful inspirational teacher she was for me, and taking us to various places to learn about your mo'oku auhau, your genealogy. I am going to use the term ha'i kupuna. For some of you, for those who are, the novice or beginner genealogists, I hope that this presentation will inspire you. But Auntie Edith Mackenzie had taken us on field trips during that class, where she showed us how to retrieve information. And I have it on a page of resources that towards the end of this presentation. So if you could hang on to see that. Also, my Hanai parents from Niihau, I never heard them mention the word mo'oku auhau. They mentioned the word ha'i kupuna. And so I've become accustomed to using the word ha'i kupuna versus mo'oku auhau, because the ha'i kupuna is really a chant or a speech that you utter in remembrance of your kupuna. And so these were the chants that one memorized. And it would be the same, ha'i kupuna is also a style of chant and a style of genealogy, if you will. But what makes it different is mo'oku auhau could be on a more larger level, and a ha'i kupuna would be a condensed, narrow line to a specific ancestor that you're wanting to, share. And most times, these ha'i kupuna or mo'oku auhau were done at the birth of an ali'i, um, at ritualistic times, like if a young boy was now going into adolescence, becoming a man, and those specific times when an ali'i was to be wed is another occasion, as well as upon the death or the passing of that specific ali'i. So these were appropriate times to recite your ha'ikupuna or mo'oku auhau. Okay, so that olelo no'eau is important. A'ole pau ka ike ka halau ho'okahi, because there are so many schools of learning. We have so many teachers, and no one way is the correct way. So just be open to that. And what I share with you today comes from many different sources. And so we're going to holo more now to the next slide. Okay, so we have wonderful scholars in the history of our Hawaiian culture, and historians and heritage. There are wonderful people like David Malo, Samuel Kamakau, Kepelino, Pukui, wonderful kupuna that gone before us that were very i'ike. They were very solid in their na'awau. And I wanted to say that this one historian, I wanted to highlight his ike and share a little bit about you folks of who this person is. So this comes out of what is called the story of Hawaii royalty. So his name is Kapi'i Kaui Kamoku, and actually he's from Kauai, and so it was pleasant to learn that. And he had a series of what he published in the Honolulu Advertisers in the 50s, specifically in 1955, which he entitled it Song of Eternity. He also claims his lineal descendancy from various ali'i kapu. And I wanted to go ahead and quote him on this. All of the kings and princes of modern Hawaii, in one way or another, trace their descent from either this monarch, who he's highlighting, Chief Keawe'i Kekahi Ali'i o Kamoku, or from his sacred sister of half-blood, the Princess Kaulelea Iwi. And so it's important to know that even though today I'll be highlighting really on the ali'i kapu system in the time of Liloa, so we're going to go back to the 1500s here and there in some of the slides, that the ali'i kapu system may have started in Hawaii, like Kapi'i Kaui Kamoku claims in his research. But I wanted to highlight this person because I felt a strong sense of why people did not raise their levels of acknowledging this one person. And so his name was Sam Amalu, but he went by the name Kapi'i Kaui Kamoku. And so there were weekly publishing articles or columns, if you will, that he put into the newspaper throughout the year of 1955. He's no longer here. I want to say that he passed away in 1986. And his last publishing was in the newspaper was in 1984. Okay. Holomwa. A little bit more about him. He will be emphasizing in his articles. If you find it, you can find his writings through ulukau.org, which is one of the resources you're going to see on that reference pages or resource page later on. But he emphasizes the genealogy and the person, Keawe Kekahia Li'i o Kamoku. And this is who we know today as Moku o Keawe. It's because of this Keawe. Because there are many Keaves, but it's the name that goes either the prefix or the suffix after the name. In this case, Keawe Ike Kahiali'i o Kamoku is the Keawe that made Hawaii popular. When people, you see it in songs, you hear it in chants, see it in dances, Moku o Keawe. This is the person, the ali'i kapu that is remembered in that. As you read through his information, through the author's information, he goes into various kapus that Keawe was born with because of his lineal descendancy, because of who his parents were. But it says that he was destined to be one of the greatest and most beloved of island monarchs. Same for Pi'ilani on Maui. He was a benevolent chief. And same for Kauai, Mano Kalanipo, and on Oahu, Kaku-Hawai'i, and other ali'i. They were remembered in these chants and dances and stories because of what they did. So with that, I'm going to share with you another olelo no'eau. And this olelo no'eau, iali'i ke ali'i ike kanaka. Iali'i ke ali'i ike kanaka. And what this means is an ali'i gained his status because of his subjects. They were rulers and benevolent rulers if they work alongside their people. You know, there were other chants and stories, songs and dances that remembered the not so good ali'i as well, because it's two-sided. Some ali'i may not have been good to their people, so their people left and went to serve another ali'i in another ahupua, in another moku, or in another mokupuni. So I wanted to share that olelo no'eau. And the last thing that I wanted to share about this chief Keawe was who his mother was. His mother was Keakealani Wahine, because you know, with our Hawaiian names, many times the name will reappear again generations later. And it's because you're making the link to who your ancestors were. And of course, in today's time, we tend to have to do research of who our ali'i were or who our ancestors were if we're going to have that name carried into a child that is born of today or modern day. Because certain names may have kapu because of the birth rank of the carrier of that name. And so Keawe's mother was one of three renowned ali'i kapu who were actually paramount chiefesses. And she was one of them. Kaikilani was another one who was before Keakealani's time, as well as Lili'uo Kalani. So when I say paramount ali'i kapu, that means they became the paramount, the mo'i, if you will. The mo'i is more modern than the word ali'i. And the word mo'i refers to supreme ruler or paramount chief or chiefesses. So mo'i wahine would be, in this case, be these three mana wahine, Keakealani, Kaikilani, and Lili'uo Kalani. They were mo'i wahine. And if it's a male ruler, which is mostly dominant in our culture, that we had more male chiefs or chieftains or ali'i kapu or mo'i kane in our history. Polomuat. Ho'onui Hawaii ke olu. Back to, there's the other slide, previous. Ho'i. Get one. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Kalamai. Okay. So maka e mele ana kako Okay, let me do a quick introduction to this mele. So this one is in reference to the time of our mo'i wahine, Lili Ua Kalani. And wanted to share that when you find this mele, although we know it as Kaulana Napua today, if you do the research, it was originally composed or known as Mele Aipo Haku, which is the song of eating stones or rocks. Because in one of the verses you see, it talks about that we will no longer be facing, we will no longer eat stones as our me'ai, like we have had to put up with. It has everything to do with the ku'e time of our queen and the illegal annexation back then in 1893. So we're going to bring Kumula Maka to play this in the key of C. Polole.
Ai, kinoa.
So maybe next verse you can go get your ukuleles, make sure it's tuned, and then join us for the second verse. But for now, we not have time. So we're going to go over the first verse. And you can get
Kaula. Kaula na pua o Hawaii. Upa ama o peo kai. Mai ka ele o palo koino. Pala pala me ka maka. Iki mai ka elele o kalokoino. Pala pala me ka paka.
Sometimes. Kapo, no.
okay, mahalo nui.
WORK, kilo.
Okay. Holomua kako, mahalo nui. Okay. So in order to understand the ali'i system, or the ali'i kapu system, if you will, I needed to bring in some of the other ike, though our author does not talk about this, and some things he doesn't highlight, probably because the length of the articles had to be only so long. And it's like this presentation, I didn't want to overload information with you folks, but I thought these next couple slides are important for you to understand, especially for those who are new to genealogy or are new to learning these types of materials. So there was a social class system, and there were orders of this class system. For example, in the ali'i, we'll understand on a later slide that ali'i kapu, for Hawaii Island chiefs, they had to be of a certain birth rank belonging to a certain ali'i or kupuna that they descended from. So it was important to understand that in the class of the ali'i people, there were different hierarchies itself. An example would be, if you're on a mokupuni, you're on an island, you only could have one ruler. At one time, there were, 3 rulers of the same island, and you have your mokupuni, which is the entire island. Then you have divisions of the mokupuni. Like on Hawaii Island, there's six districts or moku. Yeah, so you had your paramount chief, which is ali'i kapu. Under your ali'i kapu, you had your ali'i aimoku, which were the chiefs of a specific district or region. And within that system, you had your ali'i ahupua'a, which was all the levels of the pie-shaped lands. And not all the lands were pie-shaped, but to give you an understanding of the ahupua'a, it ran from Mauka to Makai. And in one moku, for example, ka'u is a huge moku. Within that moku, you had many different ahupua'a, and some of the ahupua'a didn't run maukatu makai. It was right in the middle of the moku itself, of the desert there in Ka'u. So understanding that there was this hierarchy of the ali'i class system. Besides the ali'i class system, you had your kahuna and your po'e kahuna. Now the term kahuna, I want to define that to be an expert, but it's the type of expert that the kahuna class possess, their ike that they're possessed. You had your kahuna kalaiva'a, which were your canoe carvers and builders. You had your kahuna la'au lapa'au, and these were the healers using different types of plants for medicinal healing purposes. You had your kahuna kilohoku, and these were the ones that studied the skies and the stars, and they would watch for ho'ailona or warnings or omens so that they could pass that knowledge or warnings to the ali'i, because our kupuna were well-rounded in their ike, their knowledge base. So the kahuna had all sorts of classes, if you will. They had those, like the ali'i, they had those that were good kahuna, but you also had those that were not so good. And so there was a whole balance. You know, if you had a kahuna that was practicing what they called a kahuna ana, who was to practice witchcraft, for example, you needed another type of kahuna, perhaps a kahuna pule that we know of today would be a minister or a reverend or priest that would come and counter those chants or those evil deeds done by the kahuna ana. So you had to have something to fix up. If there was a cause of pain or hurt, then you needed someone to heal that. So it was all balanced with the ali'i system, the kahuna system. Now the maka'ainana are the common people, common folks. And, you know, it's like when you look at the United States system and what's going on today, you know, we who speak, we are the people. The maka'ainan are the same way. And then we go back to the olelo no iau, ike ali'i, iali'i ke ali'i, ike kanaka. Who are the ones that put all these politicians into their seats? It's us, the people, the maka'ainana. So very important to know that maka'ainana, like I mentioned earlier, if they didn't like their ali'i for whatever reason, the ali'i mistreated their family, then they packed up and left. And that brings me to remind us that our people were not hoarders. You know, they couldn't live inside of a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house and hoard things because they had to get ready. They had to be mobile. So they were nomadic people where they traveled from one ahupua'a to the next ahupua'a, one moku to the next moku, one moku puni to the next moku puni. And so to give you an understanding. Now the kaua was a different caste of people where they were looked at as servants or outcasts. And many times they served as what we call moho, or they were given as sacrifices, human sacrifices by the ali'i, whether it was to pele, whether it was to ku, to kane, kanaloa. Lono is the only one that didn't require that kind of sacrifice, really. And so the kaua castes, they were called outcasts. But later, in a later time, they mixed up or crossbred with the maka'ainana. So we wouldn't know today who would be of that kaua class in this time and age. Want to also explain that I don't have it on there that there were smaller people besides the Kanaka. All of these four bullets that I have there, they're Kanaka like you and I. You know, they resemble the same physical shape. Um, but there were other life forms here. There were the Menehune, and there were the Mu. So the Menehune, as I understand it, they came here before Kanaka. When they came here, they landed, the Menehune. I'll give you an example that I understood that I read many years ago. Wainiha Valley on Kauai. Um, the Menehune got shocked because they saw people larger than them. And so they moved up into the valley, deeper into the valley of Wainiha. But the Menehune didn't know that before they came to Hawaii from Kahiki, and when I say Kahiki, I don't mean Tahiti. I mean from a far off shore. It could be anywhere other than Hawaii. Kahiki means distant shores. Does not always translate to be Tahiti. So the Menehune came, but they didn't know that the smaller people who are like thumb. I don't know if you guys remember, was it Thumbelina, those fairy tales that we grew up hearing. So these were our own stories of the Mu people. They were about a thumb size. And when they saw the Menehune, they said, oh my goodness, giants, we got to move up. So they moved up into the deeper valley after the Menehune invaded their territory. And then the Menehune said the Kanaka invaded their territory. So I didn't put that on there. Maybe you folks can research more on the Menehune and the Mu, the Poe Mu, on your own. One last note on this slide before we holomua. It's good to understand that the social classes and orders, they were introduced by the ancient ancestors that came from Kahiki. Again, I don't only mean Tahiti, but we do have genealogies that come from Tahiti itself in different islands like Huahine, Moorea, and Pola Pola, Bora Bora. So when the ancestors from Kahiki arrived here in Hawaii, it's said that they arrived at Upolu Point in Kohala. And it's understood that some of them may have come from Kahiki, meaning Tahiti, and meaning Samoa, meaning the Marquesas Islands or Nukuhiva, even possibly Peru, because of the currents. If you study the currents of where the canoes flow, there are some currents that come directly from Tahiti, Marquesas, as well as South America. The Ainu people from Japan have the same DNA as Hawaiian people. So there's a correlation there of where maybe some of our poe kupuna may have come from. Holomua. Okay, now we're going to go into the reason why I was asked to do this presentation. So in the term ali'i kapu itself. So I'm going to speak again mostly from our author's, his writings, because ali'i kapu on different island kingdoms may be seen as slightly different, or they may have not used the word ali'i kapu. Versus the word ali'i aimoku, I believe was more used amongst the whole Paimoku or the Pai Aina. When I say Paimoku, Pai Aina, I mean it to be all the islands of Hawaii as one group. So the term ali'i kapu was established by the chief Liloa, who his rule was 1400s, 1500s, around that time. We don't know the exact dates. And sometimes when you go to our historians' writings, sometimes their writings don't always jive together because they had different kupuna, they had different resources themselves. So I'm just going to say an estimate somewhere between 14 and 1500s. And when you look at that word ali'i kapu, you say, oh, first thing you see is the word ali'i. And then you see the word kapu, because ali'i means a royal, one of the royal family class. It's a class in itself. But when you hear the word kapu, you automatically think, oh, taboo, or there's a sense of sacredness. And the kapu is sometimes referred to the order in which they're born, their birth rank, their birth order, and so on. So it could be defined, I define it as sacred royalty. Liloa established this to be the highest degree of chieftains, of ali'inui. That's another word we hear often is ali'inui. Who is the ali'inui of this island? Who is the lead chief or the big cheese chief here? Yeah, when we say, oh, who's the ali'inui? So that's another term that's used. And the ali'i kapu was established for those who future descendants of Chief Liloa to gain the right or to be privileged with the right to rule. And they were, again, born into specific notorious ali'i ranks or lineage. And a lot of times their lineage had to depend upon the parents' pedigree, parents' mo'oku'auhau or ha'ikupuna. In this slide, we highlight the word ali'i aimoku. Not to be confused on other islands again, but the ali'i aimoku was not directly born of Liloa, or maybe could be connected to the royal family, but not according to the ha'ikupuna, if you will, if you follow me. So who or what were ali'i aimoku then, if they were not of the ali'i kapu status? Well, it could be their mother may have been from that line, but the father wasn't. And sometimes you have the relationship of Po'olua and Punalua. And Po'olua, although I explain it a little bit later, Po'olua is a royal child having two fathers. You know, in those days, the ali'i wahine, the chiefesses, they had more than one spouse. For example, Kamehameha Pai'ea. When I say Kamehameha Pai'ea, I refer to Kamehameha the Great, or Kamehameha Ekahi. So his mother, Keku'ia Poipa Liliha, his mother had more than one husband. You know, she had one husband on Hawaii Island, Keowa, and then she had another husband here on Maui, Kahekili. Keowa was an ali'i in charge of a part of Hawaii Island, including mostly Kona. So he wasn't a paramount chief. He wasn't an ali'i kapu, but he was an ali'i in charge of a couple of districts on Hawaii Island. That was Keowa. And later on, there was a house of Keowa. So if you came a descendant of Keowa, you were known to be from the house of Keowa. On the other hand, Kahekili was paramount chief. He was Mo'i Kane of Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Kaho'olawe. So his status was higher than Keowa. So it was to Kamehameha's decision of who he wants to identify his father as. If he identified Keowa, which most of his life he did, and in my readings, he didn't accept Kahekili as his natural father, biological father, till many, many years upon the death of Ke'eaumoku in Waikiki. Ke'eaumoku was Ka'ahumanu's father, and he shared with Kamehameha that long secret with him before he died on his deathbed. He shared it with Kamehameha Pai'ea, that your true father is Kahekili. But it was Kamehameha Paea's decision. Nobody could tell him. Same thing like you and I. If you know you may have had two fathers, then you're a po'olua. You either go do your research, seek out your kupuna. But in Kamehameha Paea's case, if he had accepted Kahekili as his biological father, then he may have inherited Maui instead of had to fight for it. Other genealogists may have different views on this, but this is based on my research and my ike. So again, as I say the word ali'i aimoku, for Hawaii Island, chiefly line of Liloa, these were some of the ali'i aimoku. You have Umia Liloa. Now, whenever you have the letter A in between two names, like Umi and Liloa, this represents of who your genealogy tie is, or your ha'i kupuna. Umia Liloa refers to Umi of Liloa, Umi, the son of Liloa. Or if it's a female name, then, Lili'u a Keoho Kalole. Her mother was Keoho Kalole, or Lili'u a Kapa'akea. But that wasn't her birth name. Just giving you an example of names and how they appear in our genealogies. Sometimes they're so long. I mean, Keawe Kekaiali o Kamoku and his son, Ka'i'inuia Mamau, it's like, it's a whole long name, because there's a mo'olelo in there to sanctify, solidify who their birth rank or their kupuna are. Umia Liloa, so Umi, the son of Liloa, and then you have right under Umia Liloa, you have Keawe Nui a Mahi. A lot of people think that this Keawe is the one that that was known as Mokuo Keawe or referred to, but it's not this one. But these two, father and son, they were benevolent chiefs. That's why you hear chants and songs about them as well. Now we're going to come to the third ali'i kapu, and this name, Mahi Ikawa Kahiahi, is also known as the chief Alapa'i Nui, who comes into rule via his maternal line. But when you see the word Mahi, again, there's an inclination that he is from the house of Mahi. The house, and I'll get into the three houses a little bit later on. So he wasn't direct descendant of, and Keawe Nui were, but they had other siblings that were of ali'i kapu rank. Their birth ranks were higher than these two. So for Umi, his brother Hakau was of ali'i kapu because Huliloa married and had Hakau. And then Umi's mother was Akahia Kuleana, which was of a lower status than Hakau's mother. But there was jealousy, and wars and battles ensued, and Umi became the ruler, or the ali'i aimoku. Yeah. Keawe Nui a Umi is the son. Keawe Nui is the son of Umi. Mahi Ikawa Kahiahi again is referred to Alapa'i Nui. Previous to that, the house of E and the house of Mahi, they would not. They were always in conflict. They would not be able to get along until children from both houses eventually married, and then there was peace treaty between majority of the island of Hawaii. Holo mua. Okay, here is where I wanted to add to our authors, because he didn't state this, and this is where I talked just a little while ago. So pre-contact of Captain James Cook, and we're talking about the 1778 or before that, because he first arrived on Kauai, and then in another visit he landed at Kealakekua when Kalaniʻopuʻu was the chief, the paramount chief of Hawaii. So the House of E is one of the three houses. In another Olelo No'eau that I'll share right here because it's appropriate, the Olelo No'eau goes like this: E ala e ka'i, ka mahi, ka pelena. And then Larry Kimura writes Ha'i Olelo called Keau Hawaii. which highlights these three houses, because it's important to know before there was Ali'i Kapu, there were different houses of rulership. The E family, they're notorious for the Hilo area, parts of Puna. And how you can tell they're from the E family is they have names like Keave I ke kahi ali'i o ka moku, Ka'i nui a mamau, Lono I ma'a, right? Lono I ma'a. So they have the E like somewhere in their name to connect them to the chiefs or the house of nobles known as the House of E or Kahale E. Later on, Keawe, because Keawe comes from that house on his maternal side, I want to say. In the House of E, and they had like there was Kohala E families and there was Hilo E families. They were spread out, but it's the name E that even in many genealogies today, my great-grandfather's name is E Pa'apuka. So we know that on my father's side, he connects to the E, and in other areas to the Mahi as well. So the House of Mahi was another nobility house of Ali'i. And you have the names of some of these. Let me go back to the first bullet. So known to come or be linked to the House of E is Keawe, his son, Kalani Nui I Amamau, because this Keawe again is Keawe I ke kahi ali'i o ka moku. Kalani o Pu'u, and these were some of the areas, but this is not an exhaustive list. These to give you ideas of some of the areas where these Hale noble houses were situated or ruled. I want to talk a little bit about Kalani o Pu'u. So Kalani o Pu'u was ruler or ali'i kapu right after Alapa'i Nui. Yes, so this is how you can tell that if you go to Keawe and then his son Ka'i'i Nui Amamau did not rule. He was known as the Prince of Eternity. But Kalani Nui I'i Amamau, the son of Keawe I ke kahi ali'i o ka moku, him and his brother Ke'eo Moku Nui did not, although they were ali'i kapu status, they did not get to rule. Yeah, in place of their rule was their uncle Alapa'i Nui. So it was understood by the royal houses of that time. It was understood by the kahuna of that time that after Alapa'i Nui's rule, it has to come back into the ali'i kapu lineage of Liloa, of direct descendancy. So in the house of Mahi, you have Keakealani Mahine, who was a very powerful chiefess. You have Kaulelea Iwi, you have Alapa'i Nui. These were all powerful rulers. It's just that they're from different houses. So I'll go back up to that slide one more time to the E, not the slide, Kalamai, the name, Keawe and Kalani Nui I'i Amamau. Keawe and his chanters, his retinue of composers, chanters, and kahuna, he had them compose the Kumulipo chant so that it would validate the lineage, the ha'ikupuna of Keawe and his son Ka'i'i Nui Amamau, also called Kalani Nui I Amamau, though he didn't get to rule. So after Alapa'i passed away, then Kalani o Pu'u came under that rule, back into the ali'i kapu lineage again. So you have the House of Palena, and to my understanding, this house is part of the Hamakua Coast into East Maui region, meaning Kipahulu, Makena, hana in those regions, that the Palena chiefs, and you know, hana was just across the highway, if you will, from Hawaii Island. So it was easier for the ali'i on Hawaii Island to access Hana or East Maui than it was for the ali'i on this side of Maui to have to go all the way around the island to check on their subjects in Hana. So a lot of times there was huki between, you know, we have Hawaii Island ruler come to Hana, became the ali'i nui there, and then Maui's ali'i came and took back, and then you have another ali'i from Hawaii later on came, and you know, it was easy for them to, it's shorter for them to come from Hamakua to Hana than it was from Lahaina, you know, where the seat of power was at one time, or here in Wailuku at another time. So it took them longer to get from here to Hana than it would across that pathway from Hawaii to Maui. Then, you know, eventually Keawe had his own house, the house of Keawe, and all his descendants that came from him. And then you have the house of Keowa. Of course, Keowa, this Keowa Nui, because there's two Keowas, this would be the brother of Kalaniʻopuʻu. They have the same mother, but they have different fathers. And I'm going to highlight one more important thing about Kalaniʻopuʻu. He says, as I go through this, I realize, oh, I could have fit there, but I wouldn't fit on the slide. So Kalaniʻopuʻu is also a po'olua. How many of you guys remember what po'olua is? Not sure if you take your notes. Po'olua is the child of a mother who had more than one husband, and you know, she wasn't sure who was the rightful father, who could claim the child. So both fathers can claim the child. So Kalaniʻopuʻu was one such child. His mother was Kamaka'i Moku. And Kamaka'i Moku had ties in her ohana to the island of Oahu. And so having wed to Pele Holani, who was another great chief of Oahu, he put claims onto Kamaka'i Moku's child as his, but so did Ka'i'i Nui a Mamau. So you had two great powerful rulers claiming the same child. So again, the house of Keowa and then the house of Moana, which goes back generations before Lunalilo. But people say, oh, how was Lunalilo qualified for the seat of government as Mo'i? Well, it's his mother's line that goes up to the house of Moana, the chief Moana. Not only that, was his grandfather was a half-brother of Kamehameha. So when we look at the two dynasties, you have the Kamehameha dynasty of the 6 rulers, and you have the Kalakaua dynasty of the two siblings. He actually rightfully, Lunalilo rightfully belongs to the Kamehameha lineage by relationship of his grandfather, who was a brother, one of Kamehameha's many brothers. He had lots of brothers. But he's from the house of Moana. So when you do genealogy, you learn all these different houses and nobility and power in which they possessed during that time. Holomua. Okay, we're going back to Mele, and I'll have us sing, and then I'll explain this slide because there's a reason why this specific slide resonates with what we're doing today.
Mai Hawaii moku o Keawe, Okua na honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai Hawaii o mano, O umeke o Pane mai Hawaii moku Keawe, Okua na honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai Hawaii o mano, O Meke ono Kapu-Hawai'i.
Mike. LMK.
Okay. So, can we go back to that slide quickly? Ha'i hope, oya, mai kai. Okay, so in this pauku, the second verse, the composer Helen Pendergast speaks about the four ali'i nui or mo'i or ali'i kapu who were notorious. These were benevolent chiefs that are their names go down in history as good chiefs, good ali'i makainana. So in this verse, pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave. If we put in ourselves into the time of the illegal annexation, we're looking through the eyes of Lili'u as she looked at all these ancestors for assistance, yes, spiritual assistance, because it's their kingdoms that eventually she inherited. So we, pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave. I hear an answer from the people of Hawaii Island. Kokua na honua o Pi'ilani. Aid is given to me by the people of Pi'ilani's territory, which is Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Kaho'olawe. Ka ko'o mai kauai o Mano. Mano here is short for Mano Kalani Po. And so saying, our queen is saying, or the composer also saying that Kauai lends its support. Paupu me keone o Kaku-Hawai'i. Now, in some versions of this mele, you see pa'apu, and the word pa'apu means steadfast, together, staying together are the people of Oahu. We pa'apu means we hold fast together. And the word paupu, which is in my research was from the original text, but you folks do the research to see what resonates with you. Paupu means as one, entire, like a pau, the whole congregation, for example. Po mai kaina mea a pau, blessings are everything. Paupu is the same thing, together. That doesn't mean complete here. Paupu in this reason means a paupu me keone o Kaku-Hawai'i, which is the sands of Kaku-Hawai'i refers to all Oahu. But the word keone is the same as aina. In fact, the word one is referred in more ancient texts to be called land versus what we know it today as ka'aina. Keone is the same thing, but more of an older reference to mean the lands, the sands of Kaku-Hawai'i, the lands of Kaku-Hawai'i. So these are our ancestors of Kamehameha, of Lili'u, or connections, relatives. Okay, holomua. Okay, so I'm going to highlight a little bit about Chief Liloa. I'm not sure the time. I think we have maybe 30 minutes left. So who was Chief Liloa? He was a very powerful ruler. He had a lot of influence on other ali'i, but he earned his title as ali'i ai kapu, and he set the law down that from here on, those of my loins, those of my blood, will be the ali'i kapu. Again, we talk about the 14 and 1500s. He had many marriages, and some were of high rank and some were not of as high. Many of the other ali'i from different islands, because they connect in some way, shape, or form to either Liloa or Keawe or Keawe's sister, Kauleleaiwi. Again, he conquered his battles and he won the right to be the mo'i or ali'i nui or the ali'i kapu. So he wore his mahiole, his helmet, his malo, and his ka'e. Now in hula or elsewhere, all people wear kihei in the old days to keep them sheltered from the cold. For Kumuhula, it has a special connection, their kihei. Same thing with the ali'i. This ali'i in particular had a ka'e. A ka'e is his royal sash. And you see on the statues of Kamehameha that he wore that because Kamehameha did inherit that eventually, many generations after Liloa. He got the ka'e. He connected all the islands of Hawaii, mostly by force. Not all the islands, of course, were connected by force. Some was not connected due to divine intervention, I call it. And so that ka'e, on it you had the bird feathers, you had the i'iwi, the mamo, and the o'o. I believe all three birds. I got to see it. I was privileged to see it about 15 years ago because of research we were doing at the time. So two of us went and we got to actually see the ka'e. You see human teeth lined on the borders of that. And if you understand his Liloa's plight and why he established the ali'i kapu system, you know that the teeth of his enemies were sewn or matted onto the ka'e. Those are human teeth that line the borders of the ka'e. So he's saying, this is my award. I am ali'i nui, and those who come from my lineage hereon will be ali'i kapu. He had a good relationship with Pi'ilani. Now, that's how we can tell when the time frame of these ali'i, because Pi'ilani was also said to have ruled in the 14 to 1500 time frame. And this Pi'ilani is the great Pi'ilani that we remember in chants and songs. Now, what happened was Umi Aliloa, the son of Liloa, the favorite son of Liloa, I should say, married Pi'ikea, who was the daughter of Pi'ilani. And so there was peace for decades between Hawaii and Maui. Liloa is also the grandson of Keawenuia Umi, who was also a benevolent chief. Holo. I'm going to go quick through this because I may have mentioned some of them before. Liloa's, okay, so here's a quick mo'olelo. That's what this is. So Liloa had his firstborn son of high rank through that wife at the time, and they had an issue. That issue was the son called Hakau. Then Liloa later on took to wife Akahia Kuleana. And Akahia Kuleana, though she wasn't as higher ranked than Liloa's first wife, she still had ali'i blood in her, but of a lesser rank. So the night that they wed or had a union together, the next morning when he woke up, he left his royal emblems behind with her, such as the ka'e, the ihe, and his malo. Okay, I could have the three emblems mixed up because there's so many royal emblems of the ali'i nui. But anyway, he left three emblems behind and told Akahi Akuleana, when the time is right and our child grows up, have him bring these three emblems that I may acknowledge him as my true son. And so eventually, when Umi grew up as a younger boy and the mother felt it was appropriate for him to be raised in the royal court in Waipio of Liloa, she sent her son with these items, and he went to the pa where his father was. But also at that pa was Hakau, and Hakau was like, "Dad, how come? What happened? Who is this young boy?" And Liloa said, "This is your brother." and his name is Umi. And so Umi was favored by Liloa, but then jealousy ensued between the two brothers. And Hakau would plot treasonous things against his brothers. You know, I guess it first started as little pranks, then got serious and was threatening to his brother's life. And eventually, Umi got tired of it. He got his followers, and they battled against his older brother, and Umi won the battle. So that's a little story, and that same story happens here on Maui, happens on Oahu, even happens on Kauai. There's stories that same thing, you know, the parent, either whoever's ali'i kapu, they find favor in one brother over the other, and probably it's because how they treat the people. That's what I find. It's how Hakau wasn't nice to his people, his subjects, as Umi was. He played with them, he worked with them in the lo'ikalo, in the taro patches. So again, he became beloved. Holo mua. Quick story of Umi Aliloa. I already mentioned who he is. He was not born into the ali'i kapu system by rank of his older brother and his birth rank. He was not of the high ali'i aimoku, but he became, he wasn't of the ali'i kapu, but he became ali'i aimoku, or paramount ruler. He had multiple marriages. Like I mentioned, he was married to the Princess Pi'ikea from Maui. Again, son of Keawe, his son was Keawe Nui. Yeah, I already covered that already. Holo. Keawe Nui was an ali'i aimoku. He had other siblings of higher rank, but he ended up becoming the paramount chief of Hawaii as well. Very loved by his people, good people skills. Okay, holo mua. Okay, Mele.
Aolea e kau I ka pulima. Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi. O ohui ai nā ku ai hewa. I ka pono sivila o ke kanaka. Aolea e kau I ka pulima. O hui ai nā ku ai hewa. I ka pono sivila o ke kanaka.
Ai mahalo. Holo mua kako. Okay, now we're going to go back a little. We're going to go to beyond Keawe, because I wanted to highlight mana wahine, because we have many of that today. We have a lot of our wahine who are wahine koa, or they exemplify mana wahine today in this time and age. So it's important to know that Kea Lani Wahine, again, she was one of the three wahine leaders of the ali'i families. Very powerful, said to have come from the Mahi line. She lived in the Kona region, or had temples erected in Kona to honor her gods and goddesses. She observed all of the kapu of that time, because there were many kapu. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. But all of them she broke, except for these two. And these two kapu were, men and women were never to eat in the same hale, in the same eating house. They always, men ate separate and women ate had their children eat with them until if it was a son, until he was old enough to join the men. Of course, there's again, I mentioned that there were rituals in which they performed before they went to one life stage to another. So she had different levels of husbands, and we're going to go over that quickly. But just to let you know, Kanaloa Kapulehu was her first husband. Kane Kapu-Hawai'i Lani was her second husband, and there's a PO union. So that means that PO union marriage is her full-blooded brother. And that's where Kauleleaiwi descends from. And then you have Kapa'akawi Kealakea, which is a Ho'au union. And I'll explain the union soon. Holomua. Now, because she had 4 different children, and sometimes parents don't mean to do this, but what happens here is all the kahuna and the ali'i retinue, they prepare, after she gives birth to her first child, she prepares, because it's a kane, and he has to carry the throne. She has to depend on him to carry the throne. So from her husband, Kanaloa Kapu, of the Ho'au union, they have Keawe I Kekahi Ali'i o Kamoku. Then she has from her other husband, her full-blooded brother and sister, Kauleleaiwi, which is from the house of Kane Kapu-Hawai'i Lani. And these were this was the family that also connects to Kalakaua and Liliuokalani, where their family, only this specific family could light the torch at noon and walk around with the torch as like a kahili, if you will. They had that kapu in that family that restricted only that descendants of that family to carry the daylight burning torch. Then you have the brother and sister from another Ho'au union, Ho'au marriages, Keawe Uhi I Kealakea and Kauhi o Kealakea, so brother and sister. Holomua. Now, out of those 4 children, she did have to, she had to choose her first one, because it's never guaranteed you're going to have more children. So favor was looked upon Keawe Kekahi Ali'i o Kamoku as her firstborn, and all the kahuna prepared him for what was to become his future in his marriages and his unions to other ali'i, wahine of highest ranks, including his half-sister, Kauleleaiwi. But so his first son, he was firstborn child of Keakealani, and his father was Kanaloa Kapulehu. Keawe was a benevolent chief, like we know, many songs, chants written, and refer to him as a good, loving-hearted chief. People know him and write songs and chants again. His first wife was from the house of E, and his first wife's name was Lono Ma'a Kanaka. And this house of E was situated in Kohala. So along with her being of the highest rank of her time in the E family, she had many kapu that followed her, even when she went to wed Keawe I Kekahi Ali'i o Kamoku. And then their eldest son together actually was Keawe's first child. Again, he had to invest all the kapu into that first son, because there's no guarantee he would have other sons. And so this is where Kalani Nui Ia Mamao is born. And then he's called the Prince of Eternity. But from this union, his half-sister, Kauleleaiwi, gives Keawe a son who they named Ke'eau Mokunui. So it was hoped that Kalani Nui Ia Mamao would be the future ali'i kapu and paramount chief of Hawaii Island. However, both he and his half-brother, Ke'eau Mokunui, were killed They were killed within the royal court and said to have been have perished because of poisoning. And so none of them got to rule. But again, this is the Kalani Nui Ia Mamau, also known as Ka'i'i Nui a Mamau, that Kumulipo was said to have been composed. Because such things like this take place, how are you going to validate Kalani Nui Ia Mamau's children or his issue to make claims to this ali'i kapu status? Holomwa. Okay, there were 4 sacred rites of marriages. There may have been different other ones, but these are the 4 that our author of this document shares. And sometimes, like I said, even with our own other scholars, some of their information don't necessarily agree on the same levels or ranks of marriage and the birth ranks, because the birth ranks that will come right after this is similar in some of these names. So a PO union would be a full-blood brother and sister marriage. And the word PO means arch, to arch such as a rainbow, and to maintain a high status. Yeah. So the Naha union, and Naha also means a curve, and what that meaning is, like you're keeping the lineage within the ohana, and to keep the high status or maintain the high status within the royal family. And the next one, okay, I cannot see my words blocked. Okay, then you have the ho'i. The ho'i union is actually if there's an uncle and he marries his sister's daughter, or if there's an aunt and marries the brother's son or sister's son, then that union is called the ho'i union. And that's a marital arrangement, again, to keep the bloodline solid. The word ho'i means return. So from one generation, you're returning the lineage to the next generation and keeping it within the family. Ho'au was the last one, and ho'au could be, sometimes it could be a combination of the naha or ho'i levels of rites, of sacred rites. And most times it's a general wedding where it refers to daylight, the word ao. So many times it was done at night, and then in the early morning with the first daylight, then the wedding would be solidified. Holo. Okay, so these are some of the birth ranks. Now I know there are, mahalo, I know there are more ranks, but these are the 3 that was shared by our author again. So you have the Ninau PO, which is of the highest rank. You have the Ni'au PO, which is the second rank. And then you have the PO, which is the 3rd highest rank. And it's a result of the PO union. It carries on into the next generation. Now, these other ranks that I added in that I'm aware of are lesser rank status due to the ali'i child's parents' pedigree, and the genealogical makeup. So there was such a rank as the Vohi rank. And I mentioned, excuse me, I mentioned the Po'olua status there, so I'm not going to go over that again. And when they were born into these classifications or ranks, they had kapu follow them. Like, for example, Keopuolani. Keopuolani, she married Kamehameha Pai'ea, Kamehameha the Great, which was her uncle. Really, that was her father's first cousin. Yeah. So there was a little bit of the breakage of the full status of Ali'i Kapu, but it raised Kamehameha's children status. So that's why his 3 children from Keopuolani were given higher ranking than other ali'i of their time. But Keopuolani herself, she wed Kamehameha around the age of 11 or 12. It states in history books around that time. So she was a very young mother, and Kamehameha was older in his years, but he knew that to continue the legacy of Ali'i Paimoku, of chief for the entire island chain, he needed his children to be born of a higher status than he. And so he wed his niece, Keopuolani. Now, Keopuolani had many kapu that followed her. So oftentimes to save the lives of her people and her subjects, because she was one that required the kapu moi. And the kapu moi is one of the most strictest kapu or laws of the time. If your shadow touched her, that means death upon you. So oftentimes she was said to have traveled at night when everyone is sleeping. She would have to go to one destination to another. She would travel in the dark with her retinue or with her kaukauali'i, her servants, would take her to her destinations after sundown. So Keopuolani of the more recent times was one with one of the highest kapu that she was born with. And in some books, some historical books, it says she's of Ni'au Pi'o. Some say she's Pi'o. So, all I know is that she was the highest ranking of her time. So that actually created her status to be of the highest. And her kupuna comes from both Maui and Hawaii. So she was like a connector for the 2 islands. Holo. Okay, so some levels of this. Oh, I just mentioned that a little bit. So when they had like the kapu moi, like I mentioned, that's when you saw the ali'i coming your way with them carrying her. So she, because of her birth rank, Keopuolani, was not allowed to touch the ground, her foot. Perhaps there were some places where, of course, she got to touch the ground, but she was so holy and royal that when Kamehameha entered her hale, he had to crawl in and remain at that noho status because of her rank. So all these kapu, the kapu vela, the kapu noho, these are just a couple of them, but know that they came with, when you say a kapu vela, I believe Keopuolani, her birth rank entitled her to these 2 kapu and many other kapu, but that means that they're of the heat of their theology is very strong and connected to fire. Okay. Holo. Mele.
Aole makoa e mina mina, Kapu-Hawai'i ke aupuni, Walava mako I ka pohaku, I ka ai ka maha o ka ina. Aole makoa e mina mina, I Kapu-Hawai'i ke aupuni, Walava mako I ka pohaku, I ka ai ka maha o ka ina.
Mahalo nui maka. Ke holomua kako. Okay, I believe this is the last set, so bear with me. I think we're going slightly over time, kalamai. So as we sang in a second verse of Kalana Napua or Mele Aipohaku, you know, we often recognize or acknowledge our kupuna. So when we, you know, our ali'i is also our kupuna. They're not just our ali'i, but they're also our kupuna. So we're acknowledging them through mele. And I mentioned this earlier, so we're not going back into this slide because I explained it for the second verse. But just know that the ali'i became rulers because who they were and how they treated their subjects. All the other classes as well, how they treated their kahuna. Some ali'i were not acknowledged in mele because for one reason or another, perhaps, you know, their kahuna said, no, my king, tomorrow is not a good day to wage war against this certain ali'i. And sometimes the king might say, well, you know what, you cannot tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I like to do. And the warning was already announced, and he didn't follow the warning, and he lost his army. So what makes a good ali'i is how they treated others. You know, it's a humane thing to do. Hello. Okay, now we're going to, this is from Kamehameha's time down to our last queen, were total of 8 of them. And this is where I say the pai moku or the pai aina, because for the first time since there were other predecessors that tried it to unify all the islands. And Kahekili was close. Kahekili was very close because he sent his brother Kaeokulani to Kauai to wed Kamakahele, the ruling chiefess of Kauai at the time. And Kaeokulani and Kamakahele fell in love. Then she, because of her rank, she allowed him to rule by way of her rulership. And Kaeokulani became known as the chief of Ni'ihau and Kauai, though he's not from Kauai or Ni'ihau. He's a Maui chief. He's a son of Kekaulike. So really a half-brother of Kahekili, but that became his home. And they fell in love and they had a son named Kaumuali'i. And Kaumuali'i had a son named Humehume. And Humehume is, by this author, is claimed to be an ali'i kapu. And by right, because Kamakahele, Kauai High Chiefess, her kupuna was Kuali'i, who was a paramount chief of Oahu. So you have this mixed crossbreeding of ali'i from different islands who are also related by blood and that continue a relationship. So it's an entangled web of ali'i kapu between the islands. So we started with Kamehameha Pae'a. Then you have his son, who is Liho Liho, and then the other son, Kauikeaoli, who were offspring of Kamehameha Pae'a and Keopuolani. And then they also had a sister, Nahi Ena Ena, who died in her 20s, died young. And it was both her and her brother Kauikeaoli that were destined to marry and have children to continue the legacy for the house of Kamehameha. Then you have Kamehameha the 4th and 5th are both sons of Kina'u. Kina'u is a sister, a half-sister to Kauikeaoli and Liho Liho. So Kina'u is Kamehameha's daughter. Therefore, Kamehameha the 4th and 5th are both Kamehameha Pae'a's sons. Then I explained Liho Liho's genealogy from the house of Moana. So he's related to the Kamehameha Ohana because his grandfather is a half-brother to Kamehameha Pae'a. Therefore, we link him to the Kamehameha family. Now, there was plenty Pilikia and plenty Huki after Kamehameha V died. So Lat Kapu-Hawai'i did not leave an heir apparent to continue his legacy. And so for the first time in history, they had election in 1872. So Lunalilo is the first king to be elected. So between Lunalilo, Kalakaua, and Queen Emma, who was wife of Kamehameha IV, they had to vie for the throne, and each had to make sure that their retinue or their servants or their genealogists step forth and produce their ha'i kupuna to specific ali'i, such as the House of E, the House of Mahi, the House of Palena. By which route do they prove their status as an authority to ascend the throne, to justify their authority or connection? So Lunalilo only reigns for 1 year. Both Kamehameha V and Lunalilo were bachelor kings. They had no spouses, though they were promised to other chiefesses. Somehow the other chiefesses during those times, many of them fell in love with people from Amelika Hui Pu'ia and not their own Kanaka. So Lunalilo reigned for only a year as well, about 13 months. And then there was another election because Lunalilo didn't, he didn't have someone, or he didn't say who was going to inherit his throne. So his rank was short-lived. Then Kalakaua and Emma, Queen Emma, they had to vie for another political, rallies to try to get the seat of government. And both had high ranks because they could claim their lineage to specific royalty. King David Kalakaua, as I mentioned earlier, his kupuna is Ka'i'i Nui Amamau. So Queen Liliuokalani was able to write a book called Kumulipo, and in that book, the very first page, her dedication page, is to her kupuna, Kalani Nui I'i Amamau. And then I think, where are we now? Then we have Kalakaua, who reigned from actually 1874 to 1891 until his untimely death in San Francisco. And supposedly that was an assassination upon his death. And then Liliuokalani became the Mo'i Wahine in 1891 after she ascended the throne. Holomua. So here's a resource page for your perusal. Forgive me, I forgot to mention Auntie Edith Mackenzie's books. Auntie Edith Kavelohea Mackenzie, I forgot to put it in here. It's also, I believe, online at Ulu Kau, but it's good to have those with small handbooks, very doable to read, easy reads. Auntie wrote those books, I want to say in the 1970s or 80s. It's called Hawaiian Genealogies. So please look her information up. Many of these are already on Ulukau, but you have to choose the icon relevant to them. Many of them were translated by these scholars. Ruling Chiefs is an awesome book. It talks about the ruling chiefs of all the islands from the time of the 1700s up until the last ruler, Liliu. Hawaiian Antiquities, and there's other books that David Malo wrote. They were very akamai, and they were very, in today's time, especially with the revival of our culture happening with situations on Mauna Kea, situations with the pandemic, it's difficult, it's trying for many of our Kanaka to understand how we can coexist in our Christian faith and in our Hawaiian beliefs and understandings of who we come from, who we are and where we come from. So these were two such scholars who were very balanced in their Christianity and their knowledge of Hawaiian culture. Also another historian is Kepelino. Of course, Mary Kavena Pukui. Some of the places we visited was the State Archives and the Latter-day Saints, or the Mormon Church. Most Mormon Church has what they call a family center. And they have the old style, like microfiche and microfilms and documents that you can go and give a donation to the church. At the same time, find lots of old records, marriage certificates, birth certificates, land deeds, wonderful resource. Yeah, so this is the resource page that, and there's many more, but in trying to do a quick, of course, this is not a quick PowerPoint. It's overloaded, and some of it is TMI, but I thought I needed to, for the novice learner and the beginner genealogists, hope that they pick up things and inspire all genealogists to want to continue on your path to learning who your kupuna were. Hello? Okay, this is where I guess I'm supposed to answer questions, but I didn't see anything on my chat over here. Ohe Nino.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Mai kai.
So Holomua, and we can actually himeni the last.
Yes, first. Mai kai.
You know. Mahope mako lilipula. Malo ay kapuko kaina. Hainaya may nakapuana. Kapo e alohai kaina. Mahope mako liliulani. Alo ay kapono kaina. Hainaya may anakapuana. Kapo e alohai kaina. That was beautiful. How are you feeling? Cool.
Close this. Can.
I'm sorry, I think we're having some technical difficulties, maybe.
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. What was that?
I just wanted to say that the close part, it's important to end with Pule. Am I still live?
Yes.
Okay. So, for the novice genealogist, if they're not aware, sometimes you can come to dead ends when you're doing your genealogy, meaning your kupuna don't want you to know this at this time. Throughout this presentation, I uttered many of the names of our kupuna, of our ali'i. Many of them are kapu. So I wanted to close with Pule so that, sometimes when you utter a name, and we don't mean to do it, we utter the name so much, sometimes our kupuna with that name come back. And they linger because they said, oh, I heard you call my name, so, I'm over here. But one of the protocols I utilize is to close with Pule so that all the names I uttered throughout this presentation, that they go back to where they're sleeping. And we don't mean to awaken them by calling. I must have said Keawe's name a dozen times. and other names. So we just want to make sure we follow that protocol. And so whoever your higher power is, you call upon them to pani, so that if after this I have to go get my mo'opuna, and hopefully I'm going to go in that car by myself. So that the idea is to make sure that they're back at rest. Yeah. Hikino.
Ay, hikino. Oy.
Let me know when you're ready to close, then I pull it.
Hikino.
Pull it. Okay.
Right.
Mahalo nui ya oko e kalehulehu e holo he maila. Thank you for all the listeners and the listening audience out there. I hope I didn't offend any of you or any of your kupuna. If this is part of your lineage, that's not my intent. Trying to bring truth to everyone in all that I learned in the years that I've learned. And from all my kumu, all my kupuna, all our ali'i. They were all beautiful ali'i. So I'm going to go into pule this time. Ho'omalu kako. Au hea oi ka makua loko mai kai o kalani i hoa ke akua manaloa. Nau no ke akua e pani i ke ia papahana. I mea e ka ana like ai ka uike me lako wala ka poe e ho'olohe maila. Nau no ke akua e hoi kaika ko mako uhane. Mea na inoa kapu a pau i ho'opuka aku ai ko mako olelo, ko mako leo, ko mako no hoi. Nau no ke akua ho'opale ia mako. Na mea launa ole kilo i aku. Olu ho mai ko mako na au pono ai ko mako ala hele. I ke ia mua aku. No laila ka haku ho launa pu mai oi ko uhane he malele. Mea a lako e ho malu ho pale a e aloha pu mai me mako ke akua. Ia ka mako leo pule loko kainoa mana o kau ke ki he malele o Yesu Kristo ko mako ho ola. Amene, amene, amene.
Oh, mahalo,
Mahalo
nui.
nui.
And so we started with our pule for Kiakua to bless us. And this is a very important topic. And we wanted to mahalo Kumu Kualoha Nui Kaulia for joining us in this workshop series that we're putting on. So for those of you that are interested in learning more about our theme and Na'ali'i Hawaii, you can visit us at www.maliefoundation.org. Remember, our foundation is Malie, not Maile or Malia. It's Malie Foundation. And so we're going to be also in September, we have our Kauai Mokiana festivals that we're going to be sharing with all of you virtually. So stay tuned on our Facebook page, also with Malie Foundation, as well as the Kauai Mokiana festivals page, and also our website as well for updated information on the Kauai Mokiana festivals. That's going to be held September 20th to the 26th. So please join us, mark your calendar for that time. We say mahalo again to Kiakua. We also say mahalo to our presenter, Kualoha Nui Kaulia, and Uncle Nathan Kalama, our founder. So Uncle, I know you're listening and watching. Love you so much. So please stay safe. When you go out, wear your mask. But if you don't have to go out, stay indoors and to be safe, not only for you, but for others. Aloha ke kahi ke kahi. Na kia koe e ho'opo mai ka ia ka ko apau. Aloha.
mako hulili Aloha ai ka pono ka Aina I he mai na ka puana O e aloha ka aina Ai ai